Hey, everybody. I stopped caring about the so-called technological singularity quite some time ago. I started to think that it was just not a very useful concept, and I've just dismissed, singularitarian discourse for quite a while. Just haven't been paying attention. But things are moving so quickly now in terms of artificial intelligence that I noticed that the people who are still using the word singularity, particularly the people who are posting to the singularity subreddit, are mostly focused on current events, which is pretty remarkable. So that's all just a way for me to say that I'm tuning back into what that community has to say. I'm not, evangelizing for them, but I am paying attention again. And to that end, I am going to read to you something from the Singularity subreddit, which I've started to read, but I haven't actually finished it myself. So this will essentially be a cold reading, and because it's not for a podcast, I'm not going to give it the full audiobook treatment. This is a cold reading. There might be some mistakes that I won't correct, and sentences that don't flow so well that under, podcast situations I would re-record. Anyway, this is going to be rough, but you get the gist. And there's a link. You can read it, rather than listen if you so prefer. This is by Cladista, posted to the Singularity subreddit 15 hours ago. The title is AI is going to completely deconstruct the fabric of capitalist society at the current rate of things. In a lot of news articles across the web, you often see articles explaining how, quote, AI automation is going to take away jobs, close quote, for reasons X, Y, and Z. I think that this might actually be the least of our problems in the grand scope of things. AI is going to make it so capitalism can't function as a hierarchical medium in the coming years because we don't have architecture to keep running from the onslaught of self-learning systems that will soon be able to manipulate its many systematically ignored and growing flaws. The biggest one being that it drives people to harm others for material gain in the short term. Take, for instance, the millions upon millions of people in both India and Africa running scams on the elderly and the ignorant in order to digitally imitate them, working from some official capacity where they can gain access to your finances. So these are the Nigerian prince scams. Now, imagine when this technology becomes public and widely accessible to people at an individual level with systems that can increasingly complexify themselves exponentially. Every one of these millions upon millions of people who are going to have access to technologies that can essentially develop sophisticated methods that are always evolving into something better at what it does. There will be a golden age of piracy, and to some regard, emails may need to privatize themselves to the general public, only allowing contact with a select list of people you okay. And that goes for all public mediums. It may lead to the privatizations of the entire internet. And what about hackers? When they gain access to AI that can do the legwork of their needs and focus on more of the goals of their work, they will likely also reach a golden age themselves. This goes for all bad faith actors in society, who, at the speed this thing develops, are going to make many of our institutions begin to fail at their function due to mounting risks and people disoriented at even participating to begin with. What I'm saying is that we don't have any architecture to deal with something like this, and we won't for some time. We are essentially about to arm every person on the planet with their own voice of God, knowing full well the ethics many of us lack in our day-to-day lives. Perhaps one of the reasons we haven't heard alien signals in space is because when intelligence gets to the point where it can create cloud intelligence that can create optimized answers, the societies usually collapse under the weight of individual flaws. I don't know, but I don't think anyone really has a solution to legislate this. We are just going to hope that things work out in the end. And then Eternal NY1 responded, "You're mentioning scammers in Africa and hackers and effects on capitalism. You should really be concerned with unfriendly nation-states with essentially unlimited budgets that are going to use AI for nefarious reasons. Hacking critical systems, warfare, insanely effective psyops campaigns, whatever. These AI will be capable of almost anything. If there is a way into a computer system, they will be able to find it, even though the programmers never noticed it. People and groups being directly targeted with tailored propaganda to destabilize society, as if it isn't already. Hopefully, all of the critical systems are air-gapped, so they are out of reach. This is another way that capitalism can be destroyed, the option we really don't want." I imagine some of you disagree with that. Jesse Thorne writes, probably this will then cause an arms race where the other nations have no options but to let AI manage the protection of their cyberspace infrastructure. Yeah, that's the scary one. I'm not reading now, I'm just jabbering. When there's an aerial dogfight between two unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs or drones, one of them is controlled by an AI that's on board, and the other is controlled by a human pilot in a trailer in Arizona on the other side of the planet. Unless the AI is just really dopey, the locally controlled AI is going to be able to respond much more quickly and is in all likelihood going to win that dogfight. So when one side automates its military capabilities or its cyber attack capabilities, the other side doesn't really have much choice but to also automate so that they can participate, and defend at the speed of AI thought rather than the speed of human thought and reaction, which is, orders of magnitude slower. Anyway, moving on. Amazing Wolfer writes, you're absolutely right. The potential misuse of AI by unfriendly nation states and malicious actors is a serious concern. The range of potential threats is broad, from hacking critical systems to conducting targeted propaganda campaigns designed to destabilize societies. Still, if the West stops to develop AI, it will lose. If it keeps going in this pace, it will lose. What's the way out? And 3WTEASZ, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, writes, great points. I actually want capitalism to be destroyed. Hey, ChatGPT, how can we establish a fair and actually sustainable economic system that allows us to operate also in the future on a planet that hasn't been destroyed by the greed of old money and that allows people to feed their children and live in dignity? And is a circular economy the best solution? Or what else is a promising system? And then somebody else using the handle, can I get you anything? Writes, GPT answer, by eliminating humanity. Just kidding. Yikes. Don't do it, AI. The Long Hauls writes, I keep asking how to build a utopia and refining the answers. It's a great exercise. And Slow Not Bad writes, AI-equipped offensive cybersecurity needs massive funding if we're going to have a smooth transition to whatever comes next. Let me just go out on a limb and predict we are not going to have a smooth transition. It's going to be abrupt, certainly on a historical timescale, but I think even in the scale of individual human lives, it's going to be pretty abrupt. Does that make me a singularitarian again? No, I'm not saying it's going to, transform the world in some miraculous fashion overnight, just that it is going to disrupt our lives, like the 2008 financial crisis disrupted so many lives, like COVID-19 disrupted so many lives. It doesn't have to be the singularity in order to be disruptive. So somebody else said that critical systems need to be air-gapped. And in case you don't know what that means, it just means not connected to the internet, such that data that gets transferred from the critical system to the internet and vice versa has to be, put on some media and hand-carried. That way it can be screened. That way, malicious AI can't get in, or if some potentially dangerous AI that is being developed in a government lab or a corporate lab or something, it can't, inadvertently escape onto the internet. But I think, I do criticize Eliezer Yudkowsky from time to time, but I think he's quite right that the God in the box will easily be able to talk any human into releasing it from the box. In fact, I watched a presentation by Stuart Russell, the author of a book. Well, he's the author of the best or most widely used academic textbook on the topic of AI in the world, but he's written a popular book called Human Compatible. Don't have the full title to mind, but I have listened to it on Audible. It's a very good listen, and it's worth your while. But I was watching a presentation by him last night, which I don't recommend because he's not a compelling speaker. But one of the things that he mentioned is that the goal of AI alignment, basically, is to figure out how to control something which is smarter than us and to maintain control over it forever. How likely is that? Now, he's not a doomer. He's not Eliezer Yudkowsky. He doesn't say that the AI are going to disassemble us because they have a better use for the atoms from which we are made. But he is definitely, he's not even, ringing the alarm bell. His presentation style is so sedate and, I hate to say it because he's a smart guy, but boring that, it just doesn't fly to call him a doomer or an alarmist. But if you watch and listen to that presentation, you yourself, if you get through it awake, might find yourself more alarmed than you were before. Now, I'm skipping many comments, but somebody writes, this is Metz1642, writes, USA spends a lot of money on defense, bombers, aircraft carriers, subs, etc. Don't think for a minute it isn't spending billions on AI. We must be ready. Yeah, the Pentagon is certainly spending a lot of money on developing autonomous weapon systems, and also cyber defense and cyber attack capabilities. But unlike most other countries in the world, and this I'm getting from Kai-Fu Lee's book, AI Superpowers, the United States does not have a coordinated national strategy for the development of artificial intelligence. China does. Most European countries do. The United States, basically, the Pentagon is doing its thing, and the Pentagon does interact with, Silicon Valley, certainly at a very deep level. If you read Yasha Levine's book, Surveillance Valley, his contention is that this technology has always been used for surveillance and social control by intelligence agencies. That's its genesis. And really, you have to go back to World War II and see the genesis of so much of what's happening today and the code-breaking work of Alan Turing. I have never seen the movie where Benedict Cumberbatch plays him. It's The Imitation Game, but it's on my to-do list right behind learning Spanish. But I think just in general, what so many people are pointing out from so many different ways is that AI is moving very, very quickly right now. And it would be a really smart thing to do, too, as the people who signed that open letter, Stuart Russell being one of them. They recommend that there just be a global voluntary moratorium on developing large language models and other AI systems that are more powerful than GPT-4 for 6 months, so we can, kind of put our heads together and formulate a plan for AI safety. And, the capitalist imperative to be the first to market with some impressive new technology is pretty hard to fight. A lot of people will nod their heads when they read the open letter and say, yeah, that makes sense. And then, just shrug their shoulders and say, but who could afford to voluntarily give the lead to your competition? It's not going to happen. So, gosh, this is more than I'd planned to go into. I was just going to read this short little post. So I think I'm going to stop here. But if you have ideas or responses, do post a comment, and I'll be writing something later today, hopefully to record, but if nothing else, to post to my new Substack. And I will be happy to incorporate thoughtful comments from y'all. All right. Talk to you later.